Hello, and welcome to the Late Night Double Feature Picture Show. Today we're going to be discussing Wes Craven's 1977 ultra-violent, really grim, The Hills Have Eyes. This is the version that I watched. We'll talk a little bit more about the packaging and what's included, special features and whatnot after we're done discussing the film. So, Wes Craven had created a stir in the film industry in the early 70s with his first film, The Last House on the Left. A lot of controversy about the violence in that film. And had not made a film since The Last House on the Left, and he was approached by this film's eventual producer to write another horror film. And Wes Craven really wasn't interested in writing a horror film. He wanted to continue to make films, but wanted to do something else. But as Wes says in one of the documentaries included on the disc, it got to the point where, excuse me, he needed to pay some bills. So he wrote the screenplay for The Hills Have Eyes. Now, one of the things I'd love to say about this movie is, and films of this ilk from the 1970s, is that I think, along with this idea that in the 70s, film just got harsher in some ways, more realistic. The violence was less cartoonish and more real, more savage. The nature of the stories being told were darker and more savage. But I think one of the things that people don't talk that often about that lent to the feel of these films from the 70s was the film stock. There's something about watching a horror movie from the 1970s that feels grittier. It feels more menacing. At times, it almost feels like a documentary. And I think it's because of the nature of the film stock at that time. So along those lines, the opening images as the titles play of The Hills Have Eyes is, you see the hills of the title being filmed at either sunrise or sunset, I'm not sure. And just the nature of the image, the film stock, the lighting, just says, that this is scary stuff. No action has to be occurring on the screen. Just the image itself is enough for you to realize, wow, something's going on here. This is going to be an intense movie. Again, just from the image on the screen. The title sequence finishes, and excuse me, they cut to a scene of a roadside gas station. Very similarly, it's broad daylight, and you have this kind of medium shot of this roadside gas station in the middle of nowhere. As a matter of fact, I think on the side of the building it says no gas for 200 miles or something like that. But even just this image, there's something about the film stock, the way it's filmed. It's broad daylight, but there's a bleakness. There's a feeling of danger around the image, and I really do think it's it's partly the director, it's partly the cinematographer, but it's also that the film stock that was available in that era. And you can tell, right, when you're watching the opening images of this movie, that Wes Craven has been affected by the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because the Texas Chainsaw Massacre does something very similar early in the movie. You get these images, and again, because I think of the nature of the film stock, those images, which are horrifying in and of themselves, are rendered even more horrifying just because of how they show up on your screen. But I think Wes Craven was very, very much influenced by the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and his efforts in this film. So we get to meet a family. They pull into the gas station looking for gas and looking for some directions. The family consists of, excuse me, something in my throat. The family consists of a middle-aged mom and dad, their adult 2 daughters and a son, and one of the adult daughters has a husband and a small child, and there are 2 dogs, 2 German Shepherds also. So it's a station wagon, and it's dragging a camper behind it. So we're introduced to them. They pull into the gas station and basically are getting gas, and they're asking the gas station attendant for directions. So as a part of an anniversary gift that they received, they got a deed to a silver mine that is out in the hills. I mean, and they're in the middle of the desert, the middle of nowhere. So the gas station attendant is aware that that there's trouble in those hills, that there's a feral family that lives out there that is basically like up for no good, always looking to do harm to something or someone. So he has this knowledge, and he's basically trying to warn the modern family off of going out there. He basically tells them, there's nothing out there that you want to run into. The people who live out there are people you don't want to know. There's no silver in those mines anymore. It was mined out 40 years ago. Don't go there. And you come to realize that the gas station owner has reason to have this knowledge about what's going on in those hills. Of course, the family ignores that advice, and they go on their way looking to find this mine, which, you know, it's not on any map. They're like out there, they're lost. We discover that the U.S. Air Force uses this area of the desert for like bombing runs. So at some point, they're driving down the road, they're trying to find this mine. The station wagon, the wife is trying to read the map, she doesn't know what she's doing. The father, who's a former police officer, who's driving the car, he's aggravated because all this is going on. A plane, U.S. Air Force plane, flies really low over the car, and this kind of like shakes everybody up, and the father loses control of the car, goes off the road, hits some weeds. They're stuck. He busts an axle. They're stuck in the middle of nowhere. So, you know, the setup now is that the feral family who lives in these hills and the modern family who are now stuck in the middle of nowhere with no way to get any help, they're now set for a confrontation. At this point, the modern family, who, by the way, go by their names are Brenda, Bobby, Doug, Lynn, Big Bob, and Ethel. They realize they have to somehow get some help. They have a CB radio, but they're theorizing because of the iron content in the hills that they're not able to get any reception. So the father is going to head back towards the gas station, which he leads us to understand is like 15 miles behind him. His son-in-law is going to go in a different direction. They're going to split up, and the rest of the family is going to stay with the car and the trailer. Interesting that the father is going to go 15 miles back to the gas station, because it's set up early in the story that the reason why he stopped being a police officer is because he has a heart condition. So here's a guy who's going to trek 15 miles to a gas station with a heart condition. His son-in-law is going to go in some other direction, hoping that they can find civilization and help to get them out. Now, at this point, they don't realize that the feral family exists. They don't realize that they're in danger. So the father goes off in one direction, the son-in-law goes off another direction, and the remaining son and the women and the 2 dogs stay behind with the car and the trailer. So at some point, so interestingly, the two dogs who end up playing a big part in this movie are named Beauty and Beast, which I found as I was watching the film kind of interesting because I kind of think that the Beauty and the Beast, the names of the dogs, kind of reflects the nature of these two families. The modern family being the Beauty, the feral family, the savage family out in the hills being the Beasts. Um, so at some point, one of the dogs is let out of the trailer and it goes running off into the hills because it senses the feral family out there, and it runs out there, and the son left behind goes after the dog. They're very close. These are family dogs. Anyway, he chases the dog up into the hills being taunted by some of the feral family members. Ends up attempting to attack one of the feral family members and is eventually disemboweled. One of the things I would say is if you're somebody who's triggered by animal cruelty, now there's an announcement at the end of the movie that no animals were harmed or mistreated in the making of the film. So, and you have to take their word for that. So I think that's not so much the issue, but there's on-screen violence done to animals. And if that's something that triggers you or bothers you, then this is not the film for you. So anyway, Beauty is disemboweled by one of the feral family members. So let's talk about the feral family for a little while. Eventually, the dad, who is heading towards the gas station, makes it to the gas station. It's after dark now. He goes into the gas station. The older gentleman who runs the gas station is in a back room, is under the impression that the retired police officer is one of the feral family coming to kill him. So by the time the police officer gets to the door, the back room to open it, the old man is trying to hang himself. So this will give you an indication of what this feral family is like. The idea that this guy would rather hang himself than face retribution from this family. Anyway, the police officer gets him down, tries to get him to explain why he would be trying to hang himself, and the gas station owner tells a story. The story he tells is that many years ago, he and his wife had owned this gas station, owned a home. They had a child, a daughter, and a few years later, a second child came along, and something went wrong with the pregnancy. The child who his wife gave birth to was like incredibly large, almost tore his wife in half as she was giving birth to the male child. And there was just something wrong with the child from that point forward. By the time he was 10 years old, he was almost as big as the old man. Old man goes into town one day and comes home to find the house burned to the ground. His wife and his young daughter dead, and this monster child unscathed. So he quickly puts two and two together, realizes that this monster child has killed his wife and daughter, and to his way of telling it, he takes a tire iron to the kid's face, basically busts his face wide open. Doesn't kill the child, but takes the child out into the middle of the desert, figuring whatever the tire iron didn't do, the desert would finish. That turns out not to be the case. The child survives somehow out in the desert, grows to be a man, as the gas station attendant tells it, steals a whore that nobody would ever miss from some town, and they have children out in the desert. So the family names are interesting for the feral family. The men are Jupiter. He is the child who was busted in the face and left for dead, and then grew to a manhood and raised a family. Jupiter, Mars, Pluto. There's a daughter by the name of Ruby, and the whore wife. I don't know if we ever get her name in the film. They're the ones who are out there in the desert. So this is the story the old man tells. But part of the reason why he is so fearful of this family is that they live off the grid. They're in the middle of nowhere. they are, basically will eat dogs. There's a scene a little later in the film where they're eating Beauty, who is disemboweled. They're cannibals. They will eat the people who they come across and who they kill. They will eat these people. So this family is just savage in every sense of the word. So, I think what the film really, in its own way, is really setting up is this kind of juxtaposition between, the savage feral family and this modern civilized family. And in a lot of ways, as screwed up as the feral savage family is and are, the modern civilized family seems more screwed up. There's an arrogance about them. They don't listen to advice. The old man tells them there's nothing back in those hills. The silver's been mined out years ago. It's dangerous there. The heat will kill you. The snakes will kill you. There are people out there that you don't want to meet. And there's this complete arrogance in ignoring him. As the film goes on, you realize that there are key points in the movie where just a little clear communication between family members could have saved them a lot of grief and some of the deaths that occur in the family. But they just don't communicate. Like there are these walls up between them. Things that should be expressed that might have saved them aren't expressed in a timely manner. Again, as I mentioned, they ignore good advice. Also, as the film goes on, it becomes more and more clear that there's something going on out there, right? So the Beauty is disemboweled, and the son finds his way back to the car in the trailer, and he doesn't tell anybody. Right? This wasn't a natural death. The dog didn't get bit by a snake or fall into a ravine. He was gutted, and if that son had kind of expressed that to some of his family members, they would have been forewarned. There would have been some knowledge that this family was out there. So even as they become aware of the fact that there's some dangers out there, the modern family is just amazingly adept at ignoring danger signs and kind of stepping away from common sense and going out and doing things that make absolutely no sense and putting themselves in danger. There's also scenes in the film of the more modern family, just instead of once the danger is real to them, instead of grouping together and formulating a plan, willy-nilly, they're going off, to wreak revenge on the savages, and they're not planning, and they're not thinking, and they're not having conversations, and they're not teaming up together. Just very disorganized. In comparison, the feral family, for all of their lacking, right, no formal education, the fact that they're cannibals, the fact that they eat dogs and kill people and scavenge off the land, in a lot of ways, their functionality as a family is better. They're tight-knit. They rely on each other because they have to, right? They're not a part of a larger society that allows for people to be independent and just go off and do their own thing, right? Because they're a small family in the middle of nowhere, they've learned to rely on each other. Their communication is better amongst them. When something critical happens, they don't keep it to themselves in the movie. They communicate it to each other so that the other feral family members are aware, oh, okay, that's a danger, that's something we have to prepare for. They plan well. They anticipate the modern family's reactions to the things that they are doing to them. So in a lot of ways, Wes Craven is kind of showing the modern family and the things that they lack to be able to survive in this circumstance, and the feral family and the things that they have that are innate to them that will help them survive, right? Even though they're the aggressors in this movie, even though they're the ones performing the acts of violence initially, for them this is survival, right? This is their food source. This is how they survive. Back to the plot of the movie. old man is eventually grabbed and killed by Jupiter, his son, who he bashed in the face with a tire iron all those years ago and left in the desert to die. Jupiter kills him. The father of the modern family now knows that there's some lunatic out there. He's heard the story. He knows the lunatic is out there, and is now attempting to like run back to his family, which, based on his health and his heart condition, bad idea, right? So he's being taunted from the dark desert by voices. He's running, he's gasping and grasping his chest, and he completely collapses. And one of the Farrell family comes out of the desert and basically has him in control. Eventually, there's a scene where the dad is kind of crucified to a tree in the desert. He's nailed to a tree and kind of left there. He's gagged, so he can't call out for help. It's not clear in the moment, but he's kind of close to where the car and the trailer are. This is where he's kind of crucified. In the meantime, the Farrell family is encroaching closer and closer to the modern family's car and their trailer. At one point, one of them gets into the trailer. The two sisters are in there with the child, and one of the they're raiding the refrigerator and taking food, and at one point a second Farrell family member walks in, and the plan now is that they're going to basically like rape the one daughter, take the baby, and obviously from where this film is going, that baby's going to be dinner at some point. So, really horrifying, this idea of this woman being raped, the idea of this small child being taken and used for food. Anyway, the mother and the older sister are coming upon this. The mother is shot in the stomach. The mother of the child, played by Dee Wallace, who is really good in the movie. As a matter of fact, one of the Farrell family members is Michael Berryman, who's also quite excellent in the movie. So Dee Wallace realizes that they're trying to take her baby, so she goes into psycho mode, right? She's the mother trying to protect her child, and goes after the person who's trying to take her, and there's a fight that ensues, and she is shot twice, killed in cold blood, trying to save her daughter. Really hard scene to watch, poignant. So anyway, the child is taken away. The mother has been shot. Dee Wallace's character is dead. The other sister's still alive, but screaming. The child is gone. So eventually, the brother-in-law makes his way back to camp. He had gone the other way, looking for some help. Didn't really find any help. And he comes back and quickly realizes that things have gone to hell in a handbasket. His child is missing. So the rest of the film is really the idea of this family trying to get the child back. There is a scene where the father, who has been crucified to a tree, is set on fire, and basically, his entire family can hear him screaming as he's burning to death. So the Farrell family has done a lot of damage, and the father is dead, the mother is dying, Dee Wallace is dead, the baby is missing. So really, all that's left is the daughter, the younger brother, and the brother-in-law, and they're going to have to try and get after this family of savages to get the little child back. Ultimately, Beast, the other dog, gets off his chain, and Beast, from the modern family side of things, turns out to probably be the most intelligent of them, even though he's an animal. He actually ends up killing two of the family members, the Farrell family members himself. One he kind of just like knocks off a cliff, and that character falls to his death. The second one, he kills Michael Berryman's character, Pluto. First, he savages his leg, and there's a scene where you can see that Michael Berryman's leg has been mauled, the back of his foot, and you can see the bone sticking out of the back of his leg. Later, the dark circles around, comes back, and basically like tears Michael Berryman's throat out. So two of the characters, feral characters, are actually killed by Beast. So Beast kind of has his act together more than the humans do. The brother-in-law goes after his child. In the meantime, the brother and sister left back at camp devise this really, and this is kind of showing how the modern civilized folks are now shifting, right? They've been stupid, they've been arrogant, they've allowed themselves to fall into a circumstance that that has led to the death of family members, to the fact that this little girl is now in the clutches of the feral family, and they start to get smart. And also, you know, doing things that you wouldn't think that a civilized family would do. At some point, the mother dies of her gunshot wound during the night, and what they do is they devise a plan that they take a lawn chair and they put it out in the desert with the mother's dead body propped up. You know, it's not something civilized people do, right? You don't take your dead mom and use her as bait to bring in the savages, right? But this family has, right? They've turned. That worm has turned for them. They are now in survival mode. They are now savages themselves. They are now working together as a team, whereas before they were off in their own little world doing what they do. So the brother-in-law is off to the savage camp with Beast leading the way, because Beast had been there before. And these two are back at the camp with their dead mother propped up as bait. The brother-in-law gets to the camp. Pluto realizes that something's up. Oh, he realizes that, Jupiter realizes that there's something up, that Pluto has been killed. So he radios, they have walkie-talkies, he radios to the other brother to kill the baby. The sister, the feral sister, is very human all of a sudden. She can't do it. She can't allow them to kill the baby. So she hands the brother the swaddling with the baby, which really turns out to be a baby pig, and she makes off with the human baby. Eventually, she runs into the father of the human baby, and they're trying to get away from the feral guy who's after them. In the meantime, Jupiter approaches the corpse of the mother propped in a chair. He doesn't know she's dead. And the brother and sister spring their plan on him and basically end up killing him. The same happens. The brother-in-law saves his child and kills the final feral family member. Basically, we get to the end of the film, and you know, because of the act of kindness by the feral daughter, the two remaining, the brother and sister, the brother-in-law, and the feral daughter are kind of united at the end, and that's kind of where the film fades out. You know, an interesting second film by Wes Craven, really dark and savage. You know, in terms of actual gory violence on the screen, there's some, not as much as you might find in some other films. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that the violence isn't that bloody or that graphic. Again, there is some. It's just a savagery about the actions, and it's really disturbing. It kind of feels real. I think it goes back to partly what I was saying at the beginning about the film stock. It goes back to the acting. It goes back to the writing. All those things kind of combine. But I think it's an interesting film. My understanding is that Wes Craven, in looking for an idea for a script, went back to a story that took place in Scotland many hundreds of years before, where there was supposedly a Scottish family that were kind of like highwaymen, but worse. You know, they were cannibals. They would kill people and eat people and eat their animals, and so I think it was supposedly based on true history, and he kind of adapted it into this story. I think it's really fascinating what he did with this film, and how he kind of juxtaposes the modern civilized family versus the feral savage family. So if you're a fan of 70s horror, if you're a fan of Wes Craven, if somehow you've never seen this movie, The Hills Have Eyes, Wes Craven, 1977, give it a look. So just a few words about this. This is a great set. The set comes with obviously the Blu-ray. It comes with a booklet. It comes with a poster. It comes with some film cards too. I'm a huge film card fan. The special features are pretty abundant. There's a bunch of special features on the disc, including with an interview with Wes Craven about the making of this movie. Prior to his death, I believe Wes Craven died in 2015. So interview with him, interview with Michael Berryman, and a couple of other actors too. And this also includes 3 separate commentaries. So it's from Arrow Video, The Hills Have Eyes Blu-ray edition. Highly recommend this set if you can still get your hands on it. So that's it. That's my discussion on Wes Craven's 1977 The Hills Have Eyes. Thank you for joining me once again at the Late Night Double Feature Picture Show. If you come across this video and you happen to enjoy the content, hit a like, give me a like. Please subscribe to the channel as we're trying to build an audience. So thank you so much for joining me, and until next time, be good.